Okay, these six, oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Apologize for that. The sixth type of fallacy that I'm going to list here is called circular reasoning. You probably heard of this before. Circular reasoning. Sometimes it's called begging the question. What question? What do you mean by begging? Okay, so this is, I mean, as the name suggests, it's a reasoning that is circular. All right, so that means, you know, A is true because of B, and B is true because of A. You can't go both ways. So a nice explanation here is to conclude something is true on the basis of another claim, which is true if the other thing is true. Okay, so you're saying, okay, A is true because B is true. How do you know B is true? Because B is true because, you know, A is true. How do you know A is true? Well, A is true because B is true, and you can't really do that, right? So here's an example of that. That what you're saying is illegal. What you're saying is illegal. Why? Because it's against the law. And you say, wait a minute. Illegal and against the law is the same thing, right? So you further ask the person, you beg the question, what do you mean it's against the law? And the person says, well, it's against the law because it's illegal, right? So that would be an example of circular reasoning. More examples are also in the book, but I guess this is quite popular also. Okay, why do you want me to do this? Well, because it's a good thing to do. Why is this a good thing to do? Oh, because that's what I want you to do, you know, that kind of things. All right, number 7 is false cause. Now, this is also very, very important, and it is very widespread. It's almost funny if I give you some examples. False cause is to attribute something because something happened before. It is also called, and I am going to italicize it because it is a Latin phrase, post hoc. Okay, post hoc means that the two things happen in sequence. Okay, sequentially, two things happen. A happened, and as soon as A has happened, B happened, and therefore you assume that A caused B. All right, so here is an explanation. This is the fallacy where you claim that two things happen sequentially, A and B happened after A, so A must have caused B. Here's an example. I got sick last week when I got very hot quickly, and so heat made me sick. Okay. Now, heat actually may have made you sick, but just the fact that you observed, you know, it became very hot, and right after that you got sick does not mean that the heat is the cause of your being sick. Okay, this is used for like a jinx. You know, an athlete who wears certain types of shoes because that shoes are supposed to be a lucky charm, and you know, whenever the person wears a certain type of shoes, the team wins, and therefore I'm going to wear these shoes at every game, and that would be like a false cause. Okay, just because something happened and then something else happened, it does not mean that the first caused the second to happen. Okay, number 8, straw man. Actually, I'm going to say something else right before this. Right, false cause, and this is a phrase or the sentence that you'll hear me say over and over in this semester. False cause is saying, you know, because A happened and B happened right away, A must have caused B. What happens is A and B are sort of associated with each other. Okay, you know, because A happened and then B happened right after that. So that association does not imply causation. Oh, causation. All right, it is a pretty famous saying in terms of statistics and data. Just because you see two quantitative quantities, just because you see two quantities relating to each other or to us, they're associated with each other, does not mean that one is a cause or the cause of the other. Okay, and so we are going to visit this idea over and over again in this course, especially in chapter 5 when we talk about statistics. But remember, and always remember, in fact, do not ever forget until you die, that association does not imply causation, or correlation does not imply causation. Just because two things are related to each other does not mean that one is the cause of the other. Okay, now let's go to number 8, straw man. What is a straw man? Okay, if you don't like somebody, you make a straw man figure of that person, and you do something to that straw man. Okay, it's see, because the thing is, it's hard to just like attack or beat up on somebody, but it's much easier to attack or beat up on the straw man, which is supposed to represent that person, right? Okay, so that is the key idea of this: attacking a distorted version of a person or an idea, or a misrepresentation of that claim, to show that the claim is false. Okay, that is the straw man. All right, so here's an example. Einstein's theory of relativity. You know what that is? Certain things are relative, right? So the speed of time is relative. The speed of light is not. But the way when you observe something relative to time, things will look differently. This causes, for instance, if you hear an ambulance coming, you hear the siren, and after the ambulance passed, the pitch of that siren sound changes, gets lower as the ambulance goes away. That is based on relativity, because the pitch or the sound wave, the frequency, is relative to whether the sound source is coming closer to you or going away from you. Okay, but anyway, Einstein is famous for showing or coming up with his theory of first special relativity and later general relativity. But people have distorted this view and say, well, you know what Einstein said is everything is relative, so there is no evil or good. Everything is relative. Okay, so this example says Einstein's theory of relativity is evil because it shows that there are no absolutes. You can't have any truth. You can't have any ethical standards. You can't have any rules and laws because everything is relative. That's what Einstein said. Therefore, Einstein is wrong and his theory of relativity is wrong. Of course, a person who says that, basically has no real knowledge of physics. Okay, but it's easy to attack not the theory of relativity because it's really hard. But if you characterize it as a theory that says there's no absolute, that's much easier to attack. So attacking a distorted version or misrepresentation of an idea, that is called a straw man. Politicians use this a lot. If they don't like some idea, they make fun of that, and then they attack that caricature version or the misrepresented version of the opponent's claim or idea. All right, number 9. This is the one closely related to the post hoc, but I'm going to say this again: correlation, causation. Okay, this one is very similar to the false cause, but here false cause, I should say this, go back to the first page. False cause always has a sequence of events. Okay, A occurs and then B occurs, right? So sequentially. And therefore, A must have caused B. Okay, that is the false cause. Correlation causation is a little different. Okay, this is to claim that when two things are related to each other, then one is the cause of the other. Okay, so here's an example, and we will talk about this more in chapter 5. But for instance, somebody could say, you know what? These children who play the piano, they seem to do better in school. See, that's the observed correlation, or you can say association. The piano playing and grades in school are correlated, and in fact they are. People have studied this extensively, and it turns out the children who play the piano tend to do much better in school, and this is nationwide. So piano playing must be making those students smart. Okay, so that is correlation. And I think this is a fallacy. Okay, you cannot conclude based on this correlation. The correlation is that piano playing and school doing better in school are related to each other. But this correlation does not establish causation. So you cannot, based on this, you cannot conclude that piano playing is the thing that's making these children smart. Okay. In fact, there is a better explanation for it. We will talk about that in chapter 5. All right, so here's a warning. Like I said, these are not exhaustive. You may be able to add maybe 2 or 3 or even more types of fallacies after this. Let's see. Red herring, it's sometimes called a distraction, is another one of those fallacy types. And then there are many other ones. Okay, a red herring is sometimes called divergent. Another well-known one is called appeal to popularity. Another one is called appeal to emotion. So there are many other ones. I just listed 9 very typical kinds of fallacy, but these are not by any means exhaustive. And some of them are very similar, like causation, correlation causation is very similar to false cause. And sometimes they may be overlapping. And so make sure that you understand that. And that's why I'm not really giving you difficult questions to classify fallacies, because sometimes it's just a matter of opinion. All right, so here's a real life example. Let's see if you can detect the fallacy. There was a headline in the, and you can click on this if you like, headline in online. I guess this was an article online in the from the organization called children'shealthdefense.org. Okay. A headline on January 22nd, 2021 said, "Red Home Run King Hank Aaron dies of undisclosed cause 18 days after receiving Moderna vaccine." If you know who Hank Aaron is, he was known as a home run king who first broke the record, home run record of Babe Ruth when he hit his home run number 715 back in the 1970s, I think the late 70s. Anyway, he and actually I personally met him, and he's a great, nice old man who lived in Atlanta, but unfortunately in 2021 he passed away. All right, but it just happened that he died 18 days after he received a COVID-19 vaccine. So clearly there is that cause and effect. I mean, that's what the headline suggests, right? Because like, that's strange. He lived for many years. He was in the late 80s, mid 80s, if I remember. But as soon as he got his vaccine, he passed away. You know what the article is trying to say? A false cause, okay? A happened, vaccine happened, and then he passed away. And therefore, that's the implication of the article, even though the article does not specifically say that. And so you'll see many fallacies all over the world. And so it is very important for us to be aware of these types, and perhaps even more types. Okay, so after you watch these videos, what I would like you to do is to go to the quiz page and answer these questions on paper. Sometimes you may have to show your work. Keep this paper so that you can study this later. And then you go online to the online quiz for that particular section, and you will see identical questions, and you choose the right answers. If you get them wrong, then you can go back and check your answers, because the answers are always found on the same page for this section on in your Canvas shell. And correct your mistakes, and try the same quiz online for a second time. If you still get questions wrong, you can take it up to 3 times. And the best grade or the best score out of the 3 attempts will be the one that will be recorded. Okay, and then you do your homework, because every section comes with a few questions from the book as your homework. All right, so that's it for section 1.1. I will see you again when we study section 1.2. So have a great day and take care.